friends, this is 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 here again, and in today's video we're going to be touching on the uncommon Borg cube armadas, commonly referred to by the Star Trek Fleet Command community as Borgmadas. So let's get into it. Hello my friends. Live long and prosper. So the reason we went ahead and decided to do this video right now is because 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗵 went ahead and threw the Return of the Mega Cube mini event at us again, this mini arc that we see that usually lasts about 3 days when it rolls around. Last time that it happened was 2 months ago at the end of August. It is now the end of October. Tomorrow's actually Halloween 2021 at the time of this recording. 𝘂𝗶𝗁's throwing this back at us. It's been a little while since the last time this rolled around, and we've learned a lot. The first time it was kind of a mess, and I'll show you some of our trial and error that we ran trying to figure out what we're even doing with these, and we learned quite a bit. And so this is day 1 of this. Usually day 3 is the big Armada day when it comes to this. We wanted to go ahead and kind of use some of these extra Borg Armada directives that we had laying around from last time and make sure that we knew what to expect this time around. So the big thing to keep in mind, by the way, when it comes to running these Borg Armadas at all, is that you do have a solo milestone that usually comes around on the 3rd day where you do need to run some of these for your alliance. However, after you've hit that, you don't really need to be in these. These aren't like your normal Armadas that you do on a daily basis or whenever you do them, where you need to go just get a bunch of these credits so that you can open the chest in your alliance area of your store. But you only get the active nanoprobes, which you can refine from inert nanoprobes, of course, through your Vidar in your Borg Tech refinery. These are only used to rank up your Borg officers. So if you don't really need those and you've already hit your solo milestones on day 3, you don't necessarily need to be in these, because this is actually an alliance effort when it comes to this. So if you look here right now, there's not a solo leaderboard when it comes to the Armada side of this. This is actually our alliance that is competing here. So you're going to want to make sure that if you don't have a great crew for that, go ahead and get your solo milestone out of the way, and then you can kind of wipe your hands of this. If your alliance already has everything they need to run these, you're going to want to just kind of go ahead and host as many of them as you can so that your alliance can score as high as possible. But after that, don't sweat it too much if you can't make these crews we're going to show you here in the video to try to help out quite a bit. So the big difference when it comes to your Borg Armadas, what makes them very different from your standard Armadas that we will run here. So right now, let's look at this uncommon Federation outpost. If you go look at its attack stats, you've got a 10% crit chance, 150% crit damage, and that's usually standard across the board. I can even go look at like this epic over here real quick. Same thing, we'll get into it. You've got a 10% crit chance, 150% critical damage. So your crits are going to do 50% more damage than what your standard attacks are going to do. And they're going to have a 1 in 10 chance, basically, to have a crit happen to you in a standard Armada. Those crits do hurt quite a bit because of the big strength difference that you have here. So it's not that you want to take them lightly on your standard Armadas, but if we look at just the uncommon Armadas that you run out here in your Borg space, this is the level 25 Borg cubes that are uncommon. You have a huge strength discrepancy first off, and you've got a 30% crit chance, so almost 1 out of 3 of the attacks that it has are going to crit, and then the crit damage is actually 270% at this level, at the uncommon level. So it's almost 3 times your standard damage, and it's going to happen almost every 3rd hit. That's pretty big, and when you bump up to the rare level, the Borg Tactical Cubes, that's only going to get worse. If we go look in here as well, it's still that 30% crit chance, but your crit damage is now actually 3 times your standard damage that you get from this at 300%. And it even goes 1 step further when you make it to the epic level, so this will apply to the Borg Assimilator Cube as well as the Mega Cube, because they're both technically epic. They're just a huge power discrepancy really when it comes to them. If you look at the Borg Assimilator Cube here, the epics that you have, still the 30% crit chance, however that crit damage goes up to 400%. So almost a third of the time you're going to take 4 times as much damage. It's pretty insane, and that is the big thing that you have to focus on when fighting these Borg Cube, Borgmadas, is you have to have some way to either eliminate the crit chance at all, or reduce that crit damage to something tolerable. We'll go fly through some screenshots real quick that I took 2 months ago when we were first trying to figure these out. So here we'll see I was 3 ops levels lower than what I'm at now with a much weaker Vidar, and you'll see we had crews all over the place last time. This was probably the first of the Borg cubes we even beat as an alliance. That's probably why I have the screenshot here in my computer, is because it was one of the first ones that we were able to do. So if you see we go through here, we beat several of these. We didn't have that many Vidars. We had crews that were all over the place. We tried out Riker, we tried Wesley, we tried some morale crews. I don't know why we had Otto on here, but we were just throwing whatever we could out here to see what we could get out of it. There really wasn't a lot of information for us, or there was information, but it was for a lot higher in-game players that have access to a lot of the epics that we just don't have, and more powerful Vidars, etc. We don't have all that, and a lot of people that are experiencing this right now are not going to have that. So we wanted to go ahead and share with you what we learned last time, some crews that you can take into this right off the bat if this is your first experience with these Armadas, and even if you've been doing this for a while and you've seen this art come up a bunch, that you might be able to glean some sort of information here, or go ahead and help out in the comments, because we plan on moving on to the rare and epics and even the mega cube if we get a chance. Probably won't happen in this cycle of the mini arc, however we will get there at some point in time. So if you've got some information to add, go ahead and do so. You see we had Krell, Deanna Troi, all sorts of stuff when we were trying this before. So this is a lot of stuff that you don't really want to do. Now let's get into what you do want to do. So as I mentioned, we did go ahead and throw ourselves back out there today and see what we could accomplish now. And you'll see our crews are a lot more on point. We've got 5 Vidars. I actually decided to run with a morale crew with Khan on it since I just picked up Khan. I like him in a lot of situations. However, we're only running 5 rounds here, and Khan's not really going to do a lot for me. So I'll probably mix this up. You'll see people with weaker Vidars and much stronger crews that are going to outpace me when it comes to my damage per round here. So it's great usually to be able to use a crew like that, but when it's only going to run 5 rounds here because we're just crushing this thing with our Vidars so fast, it's not really helping me out. I'm going to go ahead and trade this out the next time that we run these here on day 3 of this mini event instead, and we should be able to do much more. So we get into the good stuff here. You see a lot of our players now have access to, say, 5 of 10 or 6 of 10. You'll start being able to get them around the low level 30 ops levels here. So you see here we've got 5 of 10 and 6 of 10, which are pretty great by themselves. When you put them together, though, you're going to get a much stronger combination. Your 5 of 10 is going to drastically increase your own damage mitigation. 6 of 10 is going to increase your penetration stats, which is going to help you overcome the defense of the Armada target. So if you see when we scroll through here, you're going to get a lot more damage if you can put that together. It still might be a little bit of a stretch for players, especially if you are below the 30s. Unless you got a lucky pull, you probably don't have one or both of these. So we're going to go ahead and move on to some that are more attainable crews that you can go ahead and use for the early Borgmadas. So while we're talking about attainable Borgmada crews for your early game, you're really going to have to hone in on 7 of 10, 8 of 10, 9 of 10 that we use a lot of times for your Borg probes. So 9 of 10 is going to reduce the Armada's critical hit chance by a lot, which is going to be pretty huge. 8 of 10 is really great for a DPS build early on because it's going to increase your crit chance significantly when you have full synergy there. And then 7 of 10 looks good on paper. The issue is that he only applies to probes. We'll show you that in a minute. If it worked on Armadas, then that would be insane. So don't use it. If you look here, it doesn't ever trigger because it doesn't actually work on Armadas. It doesn't say that when you look at the original tooltip, but if you actually drill down in the officer, you'll see that it doesn't work. So you'll want to make sure you avoid using 7 of 10 as your captain when it comes to these Borgmadas. So if we scroll through here, you'll see especially the 8 of 10 because of how much your crit chance goes up. It is a giant amount of increase to your damage per round, especially if somebody's running a hull breach crew as well. If you can keep hull breach up and you're going to crit more often, you're going to get a lot more damage output of that Vidar specifically. Really anything, but your Vidars are really what you're going to want to be hitting as much as you can damage wise. And then anybody who has a non-Vidar, you're going to want them to come in and be more of a support role to reduce the critical chance, critical damage, or toss like your hull breach on. So we're going to look here, 7 of 10, it says 2 shots to each weapon when fighting Borg, 90% chance with full synergy there. Seems pretty great. However, if we go look at the officer himself, we'll see right here, if I get out of the way, that it only works on Borg tactical probes. It doesn't work on the Armadas. So you want to steer away from using 7 of 10 in your Armadas. So the last group we'll be touching on here are for people who don't have a Vidar, for how you can better support your team whenever they're coming into this. You can use things like we have a hull breach crew here. This is of course on a Vidar, but hull breach helps tremendously because you're going to want to be doing a lot more damage with your crits. If you see here, I toss my Bortus in here. I've got 𝗂𝗶𝘁𝗵𝘁 on here, who's going to give me 2 of these for 𝗂𝗀𝗶𝘁𝗵's negative to the crit damage, which is pretty huge. You'll see it kicks in right off the bat. That's another great thing about this is if my Bortus were to get destroyed in round 1, it would still reduce that crit chance for everybody else in the Armada right off the bat. It applies immediately. You can also do things like tossing in, of course we just showed 9 of 10, or say the new Epic Officer Deanna Troi from the TNG crew. She will reduce the crit chance of Armada targets as well. So if you do not have a Vidar and you don't have the ability to come in as a big damage dealer, then you really have to bring one of these crews that's going to either reduce the crit percentage from these targets or the crit damage so that your damage dealers will stay alive longer. If you'll see, we just had like a 20 million crit damage here on this Armada that we ran earlier. This is just a 4-man. We crushed it. There were only 3 Vidars. It's pretty great. It was 7 rounds, of course, because I didn't bring my damage dealing Vidar to the table, but I really helped keep these other guys in the fight and let them do these things like pulling off these 20 million crits when we're only doing like, you know, around 2 million or so damage standard. So that's what you can bring to the table if you don't have a Vidar for these to help your team. That's about it as far as the uncommon, especially Borg Armadas, go. Once we get into the rare and the epics this time around, which we hope to do on day 3 of this mini arc, we'll go ahead and do another follow-up video to share what we've learned there as well. We expect that we're really going to want to have more of the anti-crit percent, anti-crit damage crews in there as well, and really be taxing our Vidars to the max. So the thing to keep in mind with your Vidars, it does a lot of damage. It does not have a lot of whole health. So having those support crews in there that can reduce that crit percent or reduce the crit damage that it does to you, or can add your hull breach so that your Vidars are doing even more damage. Or on your longer stuff, you can go ahead and toss your burning crew in there, since it'll do that 1% damage per round in the background when it's there at the beginning of the round. So that's great, but on these that are smaller, we only had 5 rounds, 7 rounds, something like that. It's not really going to add up to a lot of damage, so you're really going to want to focus on reducing that crit damage. Everybody has to help out more than usual on an Armada. You have to have a very coherent team and plan ahead of time who's bringing what. So if you're a more veteran player, I want to go ahead and tell you right now, I really appreciate your comments, even criticisms on the way that I do these videos, and anything that you have to add to myself, my alliance, my server, and even the Star Trek Fleet Command community as a whole is extremely valuable to me and hopefully to the community. I will leave a link in the description, as always, to the Discord server if you want to hop on there and have conversations with me during my research for videos, so that I don't toss any bad information out there. I really don't want to do that. I've had people that have tried to help keep that from happening. I have a really great community. Go ahead and be a part of it down in the description below. If you're not a veteran, that's fine. Go ahead and come hang out too. You can go ahead and ask your questions. There's plenty of veteran players on there. And if you have a question that we haven't addressed on the channel yet, we'll go ahead and put a video together. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll go ahead and do a follow-up when we get a chance to. Live long and prosper. We will catch you next time.